What is up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, just welcome. My name is GemmaJade, but today we are going to be discussing random encounters with extremely bizarre entities. I've done quite a few videos like this, and in most cases, the entities I speak of are ones at least some of us have heard or even come across before, whether in real life, works of fiction, or in research. These ones, though, are truly in a league all their own. I've covered incredibly strange, terrifying, and bizarre creatures and cryptids of all kinds here, and even delved a bit into the unknown and frightening aquatic life. But again, they don't hold a candle to what I'm about to share with you today. As with everything else I cover, it'll be up to you guys to decide if you believe in these encounters and or these creatures or not, and be sure to let me know in the comments below what you all think. With that being said, let's jump right in. Whether discussing cryptozoology, the paranormal, or even extraterrestrials, there are bound to be some entities that defy even the most creative imagination. There is no reasonable or rational explanation for the creatures and things that go bump in the night that we are familiar with, so to try and explain something like what I'm about to discuss with you would be for nothing. These entities here, at least in my opinion, and again, let me know if you agree, defy logic and rationality to such a degree, it stands to reason that whatever these things are, they will most likely remain in the realm of speculation or even myth for many years to come. It seems to me that for every 10 creatures we agree to believe in as a whole and as a community, there are 10 more which some of us just simply cannot accept exist in the real world. I, for one, have learned to never discount anything or anyone's experience, but these ones did test the bounds of my mind and what I can and cannot accept and abide by. It's not only about what these things are, but where they come from. How long have they been here, and how many people have actually seen them? For most of the beings and creatures I'm about to bring to you now, the encounter that I'm bringing you is the only one that I was able to find, because when I find something really strange and bizarre like this, I try to look for more to see if I can do a whole video on one of the entities. No luck for pretty much all of them, and you'll know which one the exception is. Does this mean we're now hearing from people who are having truly one-of-a-kind experiences with one-of-a-kind creatures, or are there more of both lurking around and for whatever reason, we just aren't hearing about them? Here we go. In St. Jacob, Illinois, in Madison County, we find a witness who claims to have encountered some type of gigantic insect. I know we come across extraterrestrial beings who look like this all the time, but again, that depends on what you believe. Plus, in every other case I've come across, the insected alien seems to be there for that specific person and with a specific purpose. Again, whether or not the victim remembers it. That's just the thing here, though. Unless you count the absolute terror and ongoing fear one would experience when encountering an entity like this as them being victimized, is this a case where we can call the witness a victim? Honestly, for me, that's neither here nor there, and the simple act of imagining this in my head as I write it all down is enough to scare the crap out of me and make me hope and pray I never personally come across one myself, like ever. This witness is a man who chose to remain anonymous and says he was driving along the highway around 3 in the morning when all of a sudden something huge appeared right out in front of his car. He slammed on his brakes and the creature was fully visible in his headlights despite it being dark and in the middle of the night. He described it as, quote, a 7-foot tall stick insect, end quote, and went on to explain that it kind of appeared to the front right of his peripheral vision at first, but he simply didn't have time to register anything before it was right there in front of him. It was almost as though the thing were just boringly crossing the street at the time. He said, quote, it looked like a giant walking stick with 4 legs, end quote, and that it turned its head to look at him, but then quickly vanished into the woods and out of his sight. It basically went running across the road to get away from him, seemingly startled that it had been seen at all. He further described this creature as seemingly being made of some type of red wood, and that it was a matter of 2 seconds or less before it was completely gone from his sight, almost as though it had never been there and possibly even haven't been able to move at some sort of supernatural speed. It was quick, guys. He stated, quote, when it turned to me, it had no face, end quote. That's the end of this encounter, but I mean, what was this thing and why don't we have more information? I guess because the thing sped off so quickly. I'm going to look deeper again into all of the ones that I cover here and go back to like the bizarre and random aquatic entities and see if I can just like compile maybe a part 2 video or something to see how much information I can glean, because it's hard for me to believe that with all the people all over the world, like with how many people there are, that this is a one-of-a-kind sighting. Guys, I live in the middle of the woods now, and being a city girl from Paterson, New Jersey, I have seen more than my fair share of gigantic, disgusting bugs, but none of them larger, mostly, than my thumb, and none bigger than me and or human-like. I know we've all heard of, as I previously mentioned, mantis beings and other types of insect-like extraterrestrials, but I couldn't find anything about this, and I honestly thought that's what he was going to be describing here when I saw that this anonymous man had an encounter with a, quote, giant insect thing, end quote. I thought it was going to be mantis, but it wasn't. What do you guys think? The only thing I can think of is extraterrestrial, but even then, haven't most of us at least seen those videos of the trees just uprooting and seeming to walk around on their own? When Big Willie showed that on SOR, I was fascinated. I went into a rabbit hole about it, guys. The trees that just uproot and like walk off. Those videos absolutely terrified me, and yeah, I'm sure that at least a couple of them were fake, but if you watch enough of them, you'll surely come across at least a few that leave you really wondering if it's possible that this is actually happening. And also, outside my house, I see there are these big spaces where a tree was pulled out of the ground, but the tree isn't like laying over, like it's like it just up and moved. And there's too many trees around it for anything to have come in and pulled it out. So the walking tree thing, I really understand. Also though, think about it. If a tree can up and do this, why not a few of its branches or some sticks from it? And by the way, little side note, I have those little stick insects and they're harmless enough, but this also brought to mind the fey creatures who look like walking human-like sticks. Only even they have never been reported to be that tall. Like the fey ones are as small as the actual stick insects, maybe a little bit bigger. They're smaller than your average pixie and also bipedal though. I'm completely stumped. Sorry, I had to. See what I did there? Okay, on to the next one. We've done trucker encounters once or twice on this channel, and I think I'm going to bring that back because that is seriously where all of the weird stuff seems to be taking place and has been for a while, probably for the history of truckers. Another man, this one out of Jefferson City, Missouri, says that he was driving along one night, again in the dark, and again on some lonely, long, dark and desolate stretch of highway, and this was back in 2012. He was on this rural road / highway going from Colorado to South Dakota. He encountered this creature somewhere near Lusk, Wyoming, and this is what he had to say of the incident. Quote, I was going from Colorado Springs to Rapid City. It was about 1 a.m. when I came over a small hill on Highway 85, just north of Lusk, Wyoming. As I came over the hill, I saw a creature in my headlights that looked like an oversized white rabbit. As I came over the hill at high speed, it was right in front of me on the road. I swerved right and it hopped left, but I still clipped it. Slammed on the brakes and reversed to look for it, but did not see it anywhere. It looked like a dog-rabbit cross, although its face was more canine than rabbit-looking. It had very big dark eyes and big ears. It hopped like a rabbit with its huge hind feet, but much, much slower, end quote. I tried not to laugh because I immediately started picturing the white rabbit from Alice in Wonderland and was wondering if this particular rabbit / dog thing had like a little vest with a little pocket watch. This is the kind of stuff that goes through my head, okay? Writing is lonely. I'm in an office all day and I'm writing, but you know, all jokes aside, this is pretty terrifying. I'm sure this man was scared out of his wits, and rightfully so. I have nothing on this, guys. I got nothing. I know nothing. I don't even know what to think of this, what to make of this. Is there some kind of animal or cryptid? I know it's not known, but have you guys come across encounters with a giant rabbit / dog? So let's continue on with yet another bizarre and random encounter with extremely strange creatures had by someone driving in the dark on a desolate road, and move on to a man who was dispatching for a taxi service. Ooh, taxi stories. We should do that. We should do that one next. Okay. He was the dispatcher and so in contact with all of the drivers that night, and this all happened in June of 2018. His encounter has to do with one of his drivers who was dropping off a female passenger in the area of Elizabethton, Tennessee. This one is a bit confusing because the report came from this passenger to the dispatch, so it's kind of like third party, and she reported that the driver had swerved seemingly to miss hitting a, quote, kangaroo-like, end quote, creature running across the road on its hind legs. Mind you, she said it was, quote, running, end quote, and not hopping. She kept asking the driver if he had, quote, seen it, end quote, but he kept responding that he in fact hadn't seen what she was talking about. Why did he swerve? What was his explanation for the swerve? I don't know, and we don't find out. She further described the beast as, quote, something about 2 feet tall, running at a high rate of speed across the road on only its hind legs, and had the overall body shape of a kangaroo. She said the creature was running toward the woods, end quote. The dispatcher said, quote, to the best of my knowledge and research, this is the first sighting of anything like this in or around this area of Tennessee. There have, however, been other sightings of other cryptids ranging from the Birdman of Hampton to the Tennessee Wildman, and even several possible Sasquatch sightings, including a possible winged Bigfoot encounter, end quote. I know these are short and sweet, guys, but again, I couldn't find any more information. Another report comes from Mercerville, New Jersey, and with the witness being a police officer, in my opinion, it lends a bit more credibility to his encounter. Though for me, to be honest, I really don't know why anyone would make up most of the things I read and come across and bring to you all, because you become open to so much ridicule and it's not even worth the effort anyway. Okay, so this police officer was off duty and just resting on his back porch trying to relax for the night when all of a sudden, and again, seemingly out of nowhere, he looked up into the night sky and got the shock and scare of his life. He reported to MUFON, I don't want to hear it, that he couldn't believe his eyes when there before him, as though it were as normal as can be, there was a gray snake-like creature just flying over him in the sky. It had 2 sets of wings, which he reported as, quote, a regular one, and another set of smaller wings at the end of its body, end quote. It had no head, or at least to the best of his ability to see it, and he claims he could see it pretty clearly despite the darkness, and I believe it's because contrary to popular belief about my beloved home state, there are areas like Mercerville, and to this I attest because where I live is the same way, where you can clearly see in the night sky because the moon or the stars are so bright. It's not called the Garden State for nothing. I've had this happen several times where there have been cryptid encounters that I've been recounting either on my channel or in some interview or in a live stream, and someone's like, oh, you can't see in the dark in New Jersey at night because there's so much pollution. Dude, we're not New York City. You know, there are areas, we're the Garden State, but I'm sorry, I get a little defensive when it comes to the dirty Jersey, okay? I don't even have street walks or sidewalks where I live, but it's a very real possibility this still anonymous man could have, and it stinks we don't know more, but we don't. So, of this snake, bat / bird thing, the man said, quote, I couldn't see a beak either. It didn't have legs or feet. It was about 10 feet long and thin like a snake. Its wings were very thin and long, and it moved like an eel or a snake. It moved through the air like a sea creature would move through the water. I'm familiar with anything that moves around us in our natural habitat. This was not any earthly, natural flying creature, end quote. So I'm picturing it not so much as flying, like flapping its wings. I don't know why I'm doing that, but like undulating through the sky. That's kind of what I think he meant by like a sea creature moving through water. This isn't a description, or again, and sorry to keep repeating myself, but I want to be very clear here. I have never seen this being reported as a Jersey Devil sighting either. So don't think that this guy saw the Jersey Devil, because that's not what the Jersey Devil is reported to look like. So what the hell was it? As someone who literally lives in the woods in New Jersey, I have to say I'm quite concerned, and will definitely not only be looking more into this one, but we'll be looking more into the sky when I go outside to hang out with the moon for a little bit. Could this possibly be some sort of extraterrestrial who, like the others on our little list here, thought it would be safe to get out and spread its wings on this crisp and clear night? I don't understand why these things thought they wouldn't be seen, or maybe they didn't care, and honestly, I don't know which scares me more. They're just so blatant and brazen about it these days. Or so it seems. Maybe it's just that we all have access to immediate cameras, which makes me question why there were no video or pictures taken, but I just feel like we can't discount any of it. We don't know every inch of the woods in all of the world. We just don't. No human being can say that they do. So how do we really, really know? Think about the strangest thing you've ever seen. The strangest, most bizarre, even if it wasn't scary, encounter you've ever had. Do you guys think that this thing could have been interdimensional and accidentally or even on purpose ended up in our world for those few brief moments? I know for a fact, and I won't get into the whole thing now, but I've spoken about it in many interviews and sometimes on Wednesday nights during the live stream. But I know for a fact, believe it or not, that there is an ancient planet or star system where there are absolutely gigantic spiders, okay? And there are some YouTube videos where I've seen this, them crawling over houses and stuff, where everyone thinks they're fake, and I actually think that they're real. So they're hostile, they're warmongers, and just flat out nasty and evil. And I truly believe this is why just the sight of even the tiniest of spiders, even if they're harmless, will send most of us into at least some small panic or fear, even if we don't particularly know why. It's because we remember in like our soul memory this spider planet. I'm sorry for getting off track, but I'm just trying to say, like, we just don't know. I guess I could have just said, we don't know, guys. When I hear about sightings and encounters like the ones mentioned above, I wonder if somehow some of these things are actually extraterrestrial, and if when they see entities like the Greys and Mantis beings and even the reptilians letting themselves be seen, if it isn't sort of a granting of permission to these other things to come and, even if very briefly, show themselves and make themselves known. I don't know. When I first saw this, as with the others, I couldn't find a single other sighting of such a thing here in Jersey, or anywhere else for that matter, but that won't stop me from searching some more, and of course, I'll let you guys know what I find, if anything. So what video about bizarre and terrifying beasts and unknown creatures would be complete if we didn't have one from our now seemingly good friend and kind of well-known celebrity unknown cryptid slash beast slash creature thing, the Glimmer man or predator entity. You know, the cloaked entities we encounter usually in the woods, or like in my case on the outskirts of the woods, 50 feet from my house where I sit and write this now, and 10 feet from a main and very well-traveled road. Ugh, still gives me the creeps. A woman and her husband had an encounter with him when they moved into a new home together in western Pennsylvania all the way back in the year 2000. This right away caught my attention because almost, if not all of the other encounters I've come across didn't take place until years later, and in fact this may be the earliest one I've ever found. I'm not sure on that though. Let me know in the comment section if you know if any of that happened earlier than the year 2000. The couple made themselves familiar with the wooded areas surrounding their home, and one night decided to take a flashlight out and go to spot deer with it. They went up and down some extremely isolated and probably super bumpy dirt roads and paths. They drove past rural farmland, and the only available light was the light that was coming from their flashlight. As the woman shone the flashlight out of the passenger side of the vehicle, she saw something move and expected to see a deer when they turned their light onto it, so when the flashlight hit it. They definitely did not get what they were expecting by any means. The witness says of the incident, quote, "As I stared at this shape, I realized that I did not know what I was looking at. I knew it wasn't a deer. It wasn't any animal at all. As my brain tried to comprehend what I was looking at, it became more clear the longer I stared. What I saw had the shape of a man, but it was not a man. It was not see-through as a ghost. The only way I can describe it was that it was like standing water, but it didn't cast a shadow. It didn't have any glare to it as the light was on it. It did not reflect the light. It was not gas, as gas does not have a significant shape. Gas will ebb and flow with the breeze, or at least have an inconsistent shape. Rather, what I saw had a defined shape. That was the only way I could see it because it had the shape of a human, and I could make that out because of the defined edges and curves. Only because of its outline I was able to make out what I was looking at. When I realized that I was looking at a human shape, I noticed the posture was similar to a person skulking or sneaking. It was hunched over a little, and one of its arms was frozen in place in front of it, as though it knew we saw it, and it froze its position to try and be undetectable," end quote. The woman said that she was too terrified to even move the light off of it, and the thing didn't seem to be backing down either at first. It stared into her flashlight for what seemed like an eternity, but admittedly was about a minute or less before it just turned and skulked away, seemingly vanishing into thin air right before her very eyes down a grassy knoll area which was ahead of it. I could go on and on and on about the similarities in this encounter with ones we've already discussed at great length right here on this channel, or just in general with what we found across the community as a whole about this creature. The now panicked woman turned to her husband and started sputtering about what she had just witnessed. Admittedly, she thought for sure he would mock her, but it seems he saw it as well. She said of what he told her he saw, quote, "He saw that it was the shape of a man. He saw that it was hunched over as if caught red-handed. He saw that it was cloaked like the predator, but it didn't have a jagged, camouflaged look. The thing we saw had a smooth look. It was like standing water without the reflective aspect, and its outside shape was smooth, definitive. I do not know what we saw, but I do know it was real. I have been really guarded about this experience and have only told a few people because I know how skeptics are. I am one of them. Yet I cannot refute what we saw. It was real. Nevertheless, whatever it was or is, we saw it. There is no doubt in my mind or in my husband's. Yes, it was dark, but the spotlight was exceptional with its quality, and there was no mistaking what we saw being confused with any shadows, strange light reflections, optical illusions, gas leaks, ghosts, or any other possible phenomenon. The cloaking capabilities were of absolute exceptional clarity. It bent the light in such a way that it looked like the surrounding environment without any flaws, save for the outline of the man/humanoid being. Aside from that distinctive outline, we would not have been able to detect that anything was there at all. Now, if light affects the cloak in the daytime, then more people will have more sightings. However, I have a sneaking suspicion that our spotlight detected the cloaking mechanism in such a way that we were able to detect the outline because of it, end quote. I absolutely agree, and still to this day believe the only reason I saw the thing up in the trees like I did is because the sun was shining so brightly at the time, and I knew what it was having watched some videos online about it. My eyes would have passed right by it otherwise. I was looking up like this into the sun. You guys saw the video. The thing is though, I've become fascinated almost to the point of obsession with it, as I do with most things, and I always thought that might be why I encountered it. Did I draw it to me? This couple though, as is so obvious by her statement about what went down, hadn't had a single clue what they were looking at. In the year 2000, the internet wasn't much, and it definitely wasn't what it's become now, and like I said, I haven't found any encounters this early on, to the best of my memory, because now I'm starting to rethink that, but it serves the conclusion I've since drawn very well, in that most likely these things are ancient. Not just the Glimmer man, but probably all of them, and we have no clue what in the world we're dealing with most of the time. The blind leading the blind through the woods. Am I right? Also, how did Hollywood get this one so right in the case of the Glimmer man or predator entity? Go ahead, I'll wait. I have my theories on that too, but I could probably do a whole video on just that. I do have another video of just Glimmerman encounters exclusively coming up soon, so maybe I'll save it for then. I just feel like in the case of these things, there are at least 3 different kinds. The Predator or Glimmerman, which in my opinion is extraterrestrial and very lower vibrational or even evil, most likely responsible for a lot of the missing phenomenon cases. Then I think there's one that's government that possibly hunts or at least regulates or tracks the extraterrestrial ones. And then the much newer one, which I don't have enough info on yet, mainly because there isn't much out there, the other alien being that's healing people all over the world. In the same vein as that couple in the woods in Pennsylvania in the year 2000, and because it's one of my most favorite subjects, let's do one more Glimmer man. This encounter happened in Tulalip, Washington in an unknown year. A 47-year-old man reported that he had been watching these, quote, invisible humanoids, end quote, for years because they've been lurking and skulking all over around his property, and that they're only visible by flashlight or spotlight. It seems that either they only come out while there or he has only seen them at nighttime. One report from him says, quote, they are in my backyard sometimes. I watch them for hours. I think they know I'm watching them and they mess with me later on in the night. They have a human shape. At first I thought they were people in camouflage. It is really a predator-looking military-style being. It's been 3 months now. One day I counted over 30 of them, end quote. 30 of them. I mean, it's interesting to say the very least, right? I was gonna end there, but I found one more and, as usual, couldn't resist. A man who chose to remain anonymous, but who says he is a firefighter and paramedic from Sydney, Ohio, came forward about something extremely bizarre he witnessed back in the summer of 1990. He's never forgotten it, and he says of the incident, quote, I was walking home facing north in a residential street, approximately 1 block from my house. It was a very hot afternoon and winds were picking up. I could see my house in the distance. The sky had turned very dark due to a pretty significant thunderstorm. The sky was very dark in the northern part of the sky and the blue sky and clouds behind me. It was approximately 1500 hours. As the wind picked up, something white against the dark sky caught my attention. At first, I thought it was a large piece of white paper or a sheet. Then I noticed it was like flapping its wings. It flew from my right to left approximately 400 feet up and maybe 120 yards from me at about 25 degrees from my perspective. It was large and very white. It looked humanoid but taller and muscular. My brain couldn't reference anything other than what an angel would look like. It had a huge wingspan and flapped just like a bird's wings would. Couldn't make out the smaller details like hair or facial features, but he had a head, 2 arms, 2 legs, and 2 wings. It was flying from east to west, not with the wind. Leaves and grass were blowing in my direction, end quote. Just like with everything else not only mentioned in this particular video, but with every time we seem to be talking about strange encounters with bizarre beasts and creatures randomly happened upon, there is no real answer as to what in the world we're dealing with here. Really, in any of the above mentioned cases and otherwise. I mean, just because we have a name to put to the Glimmer Man, that doesn't get us any closer to knowing what he actually is, what it wants, where it comes from. This last one sounds a little bit like an angel. Maybe? I don't know, guys. I sure don't have all of the answers, but please let me know what you all think in the comments below, because though it may take me a while to read and respond to them, I do always try to get to as many as I can to the best of my ability. That's all I have for you today, guys. Please give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed the content, if you enjoyed hanging out and spending this time with me. Subscribe if you haven't already. Spread the love by sharing this video, and if you wouldn't mind going on over to MoonBearOracle and subscribing. I haven't put anything out in a really long time, but I am working up to stuff. I'm trying to minimize. Catch me and Ghost Dragon CW on Wednesday nights from 7:15 to 11:15 p.m. Eastern Time for live intuitive oracle. I will pull one random oracle card for you and give you a weekly reading from it. First come, first serve, come one, come all. In the description box, please check it out. You will find a lot of information, mainly ways to donate, Cash App, PayPal, Patreon, Vero. My books, Missing the Fae Theory and Encounters with Evil, 101 Truly Terrifying Stories that Steve Stockton and I wrote that you guys made a bestseller. Thank you. Both the Kindle and paperback versions, the links for Amazon will be in there. And if you would like an autographed copy of either one or both of those books, hit me up at GemmaJadeParanormal@gmail.com before making the purchase. Same thing with my article in the Paranormal Press magazine that just came out. I'm doing another Halloween edition. I hope it'll make the Halloween edition. I'm trying to get it done. So if you want autographed copies of that magazine as well, hit me up through email. If you would like a personal intuitive oracle reading from me, or if you're interested in my business selling manifestation intention sprays, spell jars, I did do a video on it recently because I'm having a real hard time getting the website up, and it's really pissing me off because it's stopping my business from growing. Word of mouth can only get you so far. But if you're having help with entities, negative energy, trying to manifest, if you just want a personal reading, hit me up. I can help you at either GemmaJadeParanormal or MoonBearOracle@gmail.com. I have some information in the description box as well for the podcast I did with Dr. Kelly Schutz, and that podcast, I'm blanking on the name, but it'll be in the description box. You can check that out. But it's also going to be a two-parter episode for season 3 of the show Disembodied Voices on the Paraflix network. If you don't have Paraflix, I will remind you, because my episode is airing on the network on November 6th. They do give a free day trial, so if you don't already have it, wait and use the 3-day trial to catch my episode. I would really, really appreciate the support. As you guys know, be kind to each other, guys. It doesn't cost anything. Be kind to yourselves and never accept anything less than others being kind to you. Always go in grace, smile at a stranger, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.